And a good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. It is 9 o'clock, and that means it is time for Ask Andrew Live. You know what? I forgot to put something in the monitor behind me. I'll get to that in a second there. There is some stuff going on. I was doing some Windows updates. It's Windows Update Day. It's the second, for those that don't know in the tech world, the second Tuesday of every month is when Windows pushes out those Windows updates. And so today being the day after, I had to put those in and restart the old weather computer. So I'll get something back there in a second. While I do that, let's go to Bridgepoint Live and show you what's going on this morning. A reminder to 309-304-0888, 309-304-0888. And the marketing folks say third time's the charm. 309-304-0888 is where you want to text your questions if you have any of those for me this morning. Before we get to those questions, we're going to be talking about the snow that's going on this morning, the cold that will be coming in as we go into tomorrow, and then I have yet again another impact alert to talk about for the weekend. We just went ahead and decided to hoist that up for some freezing rain potential that's going to be coming our way. So we've got a lot to talk about in addition to whatever questions you would like to throw my way as well. So there's the number at the bottom of your screen. There's Bridgepoint camera showing the I-74 bridge. We actually do have some snow falling right now. And on radar too, I'm going to show you that. There it is, another band of it coming through with a quick burst of some heavy snow now in southernmost Rock Island County. Let's go a little bit closer in for inspection. Right south of Edgington, heading into Preemption, you see that white color. That is a burst of heavy snow that is moving through. So that's going to quickly drop perhaps 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch worth of snow. Could also reduce visibility down to less than 3/4 of a mile and create a couple of slick spots. This is the final batch of at least steady and accumulating snow that we will see this morning, and then it looks like things are going to quiet down as we go into the rest of today. You put a tracker on this line of snow, almost like when we're tracking storms, but this morning we're tracking the snow, and it should be in the Princeton area before we get to the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. Reduced visibility, could be some gusty winds with this too, and again, a quick dusting to perhaps as much as 1/2 inch worth of snow. We did have some travel impacts this morning, kind of on a scattered basis, and it looks like overall things are improving. On the local front, these are road conditions right now being reported by both the Illinois and Iowa Department of Transportation. There you see we have some scattered slick spots still remaining in Rock Island County, also in Henry County through Geneseo. That includes Interstate 80 and likely having to do with what the band is moving through right now. That'll eventually head for Princeton. So while much of Bureau County is in the green, I would expect the blue color to begin moving to the east here in the next 30 minutes, indicating partially covered roads with that snow. Now, the one factor that's helping us this morning is the fact that we're warm, and that means the road salt is working. When we've got temperatures of 30 degrees, road salt can do its thing, and it's been highly effective. What we're going to see, though, is Arctic air return, and this has been our big story the last couple of days, is this next surge of Arctic air getting ready to blast in here. Look at where the Arctic front is. It's now approaching eastern Iowa, and it'll sweep through the Quad Cities in about the next 2 hours, and once it does, our temperatures are quickly going to start dropping. In fact, I don't know if it's just me, guys. I have Devin and Ava in the studio with me. Do you feel a little chill in the air right now? Okay, so it's not just me. I was like, ooh, I'm standing over here and it feels a little chilly. So I don't know, somebody's got a door propped open somewhere over there. But even, here in the studio, we're getting a little sense for those falling temperatures outside. So get ready. It is coming our way. And look at how strong that is. I'm going to move this map around so you can see this. I mean, this is just incredible for this time of year. Anytime you get those dark purples and even the reds in here, that indicates some really serious cold air that's going to be working its way in. Check out the wind chills already in northwest Iowa. 15 below zero is what it feels like in Sioux City right now. Almost 20 below zero in Sioux Falls. That's what's coming in here later tonight and especially into tomorrow morning. So it is going to get darn cold. A reminder that we do have a weather impact alert in place for tomorrow morning. Midnight until 9 in the morning. Wind chills as low as 20 below zero. The need will be for you to layer up, You want to avoid exposed skin, especially if you need to be outside for, say, more than 20 or 30 minutes, because that could lead to frostbite, and that is not a fun thing to go through at all. Very uncomfortable. We'll time out the wind chills. Look at this afternoon. By 2 o'clock, our northernmost hometowns along and north of Highway 20 will already be seeing wind chills dipping into the negative single digits below zero. And that continues through this evening. We go double digits below zero after midnight. All of us are seeing that. Tomorrow morning, that's what we'll wake up with, likely double digits below zero. Then we'll get to mid-morning. We're still below zero. This is the wind chill, mind you. And then, as we go into Thursday afternoon, that's where we see some single digits above zero starting to work their way back in. Here's a couple of good reminders, too. You know, this is going to be a longer stretch of single-digit temperatures that we've seen so far this season. The last one we had was only during the overnight hours. But this is going to be for most of the overnight, even most of the day on Thursday. So some things to keep in mind, especially with your house. If you have faucets or any outside plumbing that is attached to an outside wall that's not insulated, you'll need to drip those faucets to keep that water moving. It's also not a bad idea to insulate those pipes if you can. Your heating system, have you had it serviced yet this year? I think a lot of us have already turned on the heat already at this point, but still make sure you're doing it and giving it that yearly checkup. You're also changing your filter, your air filter regularly so that your system can breathe. That's the first thing that most HVAC technicians are going to look at when they go to look at your heating and cooling system is, did you change your filter? Is it clogged? Is it dirty, or is it clean? Also, don't forget your outside venting. Make sure it is free of debris, especially so that the combusted natural gas can escape your home. And you also want to make sure that the fresh air intake is clear of debris. Do you have a pile of leaves sitting in front of it? That could choke off your system and cause some problems. I actually had that happen with mine last year. It accumulated some snow on the intake pipe into my HVAC system, and I had no heat, and that's all it was. So quick, easy things you can check, and it might even save you some money in the meantime. Lastly, sealed drafts. And once we get the wind going later today into tonight, you'll be able to tell where the drafts are in your house, which doors have seals that need to be replaced, what windows have issues that also need a little bit more insulation. That's going to be the time to check that out. Let's fast forward now to our second impact alert, which is going to be going on for Friday night into Saturday. Now, before then, there is going to be a band of snow for our southernmost hometowns, and that's going to be tomorrow morning into the early afternoon. Thank you, Brandy, for taking that. And there you can see it's right here. So there's Burlington, Monmouth, Macomb. That's where the next band of snow sets up tomorrow morning into the afternoon, about an inch of accumulation there. It goes away. There's no further rain, snow to talk about for the rest of Thursday. Friday morning is quiet. Friday afternoon is quiet. It's when we get to Friday night, it gets our attention here when we start to see some pink colors on the future track. What that's indicating is some freezing rain. And what's going to happen is warmer air will be moving back into the Quad Cities. Temperatures above freezing, but because we've been so cold before this arrives, the pavement's below freezing, the tree limbs and everything else is below freezing. So this rain will indeed likely be a brief period of freezing rain, and you're seeing that right here. This is 2 o'clock Saturday morning. So this is going to be while most of us are sleeping. But if you do have travel plans that take you into Friday night, early Saturday morning, that is something you're going to want to watch. Going back to the snow really quickly, there's the accumulation potential. Again, notice it's south, perhaps up to an inch as you get near Macomb and also near Burlington. Also, Monmouth, too, is included. I think that'll be just south of Galesburg. But here's the alert that we're talking about. And there you see I've divided this up. So we've got two red areas to focus on. This is the alert for tomorrow for the cold. And then we're going to do another weather impact alert for Friday night into Saturday morning for the freezing rain threat. Again, most of that while we're sleeping, but if you have travel plans, keep an eye on it. All day Saturday, once we get past that freezing rain in the morning, will be just rain. Kind of unfortunate timing. I was hoping that that would clear up in time because we have all the Geneseo Christmas Walk stuff going on Saturday, and the Beast is going to be in the parade as well. So fingers crossed that we can stop the rain by the time the parade happens. Sunday looks good for your weekend's best, and then we get another little rain snow mix in here as we go into Monday. I forgot to pop this up. I'll do it right now. Here's the further details about the weather impact alert for Friday night into Saturday morning. We're going to make this go from 9 o'clock Friday night until 6 o'clock Saturday morning, and that is for the freezing rain threat. A light glaze of some ice expected there, and we're going to need to leave ourselves some extra travel time. So keep an eye on that. Again, a glaze of ice. Don't think it's going to be a huge amount of ice by any means, but a light glaze is just enough to mess up travel. It also is just enough to potentially cause some scattered power outages if that ice were to accumulate on some of the power lines and also the tree branches. Before we get to your questions, kind of brief overview of what we talked about this morning for Ask Andrew. It was a really great question, and I think it's something we're going to hear a lot more about as we go into the later half of this month and especially into January. There's a lot of model data that is supporting what we call a sudden stratospheric warming event, and that has to do with what's going on in the atmosphere well north of us in the North Pole. And this was a question I kind of dug out of the grab bag here from Mark in Prophetstown. So first, let's take a look at what the stratosphere typically holds, and that is the polar vortex. That's that giant blob that is currently rotating around the North Pole on the map here. Now, on the outside of that polar vortex is the polar jet stream, and typically it's nice and tight, it's circular in shape, but what happens is we get a sudden stratospheric warming, which means the temperatures way up in the atmosphere quickly warm, and they warm dramatically. What happens is you have warmth near the equator that races up to the poles. Mother Nature does not like temperature differences, so trying to even those out, we warm up the stratosphere of the North Pole. And what that does is it moves the polar vortex away from its usual home in the North Pole, either further to the west, further to the east, and in some cases, you can actually have the polar vortex split off into two different pieces and rotate around the North Pole. So with a sudden stratospheric warming event, we're breaking up the polar vortex from its usual home, meaning it's free to move about much of the northern half of the country. Now, we don't see the actual polar vortex itself come overhead. We get a child of the polar vortex that breaks off and comes down to visit us. If we actually had the polar vortex overhead, you would know it. We would have temperatures of like 30 to 60 degrees below zero, not wind chills, temperatures, and the wind chills would be much, much worse than that. So it's a great question. Again, model data suggesting we could get one of these sudden stratospheric warming events later this month into January, which would mean some really, really intense cold coming down into somewhere in the north half of the country. I think the biggest question mark I've been seeing in the data so far is, does the cold air go west of the Quad Cities? Does it go over top of us, or does it go east? There's kind of some data that's pointing toward a west surge of cold air, but there's also some data pointing to a more centralized location of the colder air. So we'll keep on top of that, and certainly I'll let you know when we start to see that signal become a little bit more clear. But again, this is something that I think you're going to hear a lot more on social media, especially as we go into the later half of this month, just beyond Christmas. We'll start to see some of that. All right, one last thing before we get to your questions. There's again a reminder of how to send those in, 309-304-0888. We are also still simulcasting this on our Facebook page too, by the way. That's another place that you can send in your questions. One last thing, and then we're going to get to the questions you have for me this morning. If you're curious what the weather looks like leading up to Christmas, it's on the 14th day now, at least Christmas Eve is, and that takes us right here to Tuesday, December 24th. And what you're going to see is next week is active. There may be one or two more systems in there Wednesday, Thursday, and that Friday time frame. But it looks like overall, going into that weekend before Christmas and into the early part of Christmas Eve, it's going to be warm and it's going to be quiet around here. Still don't see much support in terms of snow being able to get here in time for Christmas either. But you know what? Christmas miracles have happened before, and things can always change in that 2-week outlook. But right now, just looking pretty calm around here and fairly mild. It's great news, by the way, if you need to travel, especially ground transportation heading into Christmas Eve. So again, it's the trend. The trend right now is our friend for those of you that are going to be traveling. Let's go ahead and tackle some of your questions here this morning. It's the solo show, so be gentle. Be very gentle. I'm on my own here. Give me a minute to go through these questions. It is that time of year. If people are busy, we're eventually going to get the whole crowd, the whole team back together once our schedules get a little bit normal here after the holidays. So far this morning, we got a good group in here. There's about 24 of you, so thanks for joining me. And let's see what questions we can tackle here this morning. Jackson and Milan is wondering, what's the risk of frostbite or hypothermia, and how quickly can it happen in these temperatures? So that is a great question. We think given the temperatures that we're going to see in here late tonight and especially tomorrow morning, we're talking about frostbite setting in at about 30 minutes to exposed skin. That's why I'm saying if you're going to be outside for a longer period of time, you need to make sure that everything's covered with scarves, mittens, gloves, hats, the works. When it comes to hypothermia, that's more related to water. But you can actually get hypothermia if, for example, you take a shower in the morning and then you just dash right out the door without drying your hair thoroughly. That could certainly cause some hypothermia. That cools your body down rapidly, and that could get you into trouble. That's a little bit more of a longer process. Likely it's going to take longer than half an hour per se, but it's mainly the frostbite is our main concern tomorrow. 30 to 40, perhaps 45 minutes to frostbite time on any exposed skin. Another good reminder, too, you'll want to tune in to Good Morning Quad Cities tomorrow. We may have a couple of school districts that decide to either do a late start or perhaps they just go ahead and do an e-learning day, a remote learning day. That's usually the case with the cold days for our more rural districts. They don't want those buses going out in the country far away from town. If they break down, the kids have no heat. They have no access to that. Not a good situation. So again, tune in tomorrow morning, GMQC. If there's any closings, we'll have those running at the bottom of our screen. You can also get the full list of those closings on the News 8 app and on our website, WQAD.com. I have a feeling there will be a couple of those at least to go through tomorrow, and we'll keep you updated on that. Good morning, Linnell from Elizabeth, Illinois, up there in Davis County. Good to see you this morning, my friend, and welcome. From Carla in Davenport, will these temperatures affect vehicles starting in the morning? Yes. If you've got a vehicle that has a battery that's kind of on its last standing, if you will, this is going to be a challenging morning for those vehicles tomorrow. I have a feeling a few of you might need a little jump start activity. So if you haven't gotten that battery replaced, don't put it off any longer. Get it done. Another good reminder, too, is late tonight into tomorrow morning, I would say all day tomorrow, you want to make sure you have at least half a tank of gas in your car. A lot of mechanics like to suggest that this time of year. You don't want your gas tank freezing, and you also don't want to, of course, have your fuel pump working any harder than it needs to in these colder conditions. So making sure your car's got at least half a tank of gas, that would be a good thing. In fact, that's the first thing I'm doing when I get out of work here after the 11 o'clock newscast is I'll be going to get up some gas and filling that tank up. So good suggestion to get that done too. Not to mention, you know, if your car gets stalled somewhere or if you get stuck somewhere, heaven forbid, but your car can keep running, you want to have enough fuel to keep you warm until emergency services can come and reach you at your location to get you out. So that is a really, really good idea. Linnell, yeah, that's a good suggestion. Those of us that have the remote start, I think that's going to get a pretty good workout as we go into tomorrow. But remember, too, the police, they're going to be honest about this shortly because it's that time of year when we're going to want to be leaving that car running and we're going to leave the keys inside thinking, oh, everything's fine. I'm going to be gone for 2 minutes and nothing's going to happen. You never leave your car running with the keys in it. If you have, you know, remote keyless entry, most of the time you can walk away from the car while it's running and you can lock the doors. You still shouldn't do that anyway. In fact, I think some places really frown upon it. But remember, don't leave the car running with the keys in it. Do not do that. I'm sure we'll be reminded about that in the next couple of weeks. Brett from Macocata, a good friend there, is asking how much ice are we thinking as we go into Friday night and Saturday morning? And will that impact any local games? I don't think it's going to impact any games because of the timing of this. I'm expecting this to be much, much later on Friday. So we're going to get those games in, I think, without a problem. But if you're going to be out late, maybe you're doing the post-game thing and, you know, maybe making a little couple of rounds at some local restaurants and some other establishments. If you're going to be out past midnight, I think those are the folks that are going to see the most impact from this light glaze of ice that'll be coming our way as we go into Friday night and Saturday. Again, we're going to work on the fine-tuning. We've got kind of a big time spectrum on the graphic there of when we expect the icing to occur, but we will narrow that down as we get a little bit closer, but certainly looks like it's going to be late Friday into early Saturday. From Sarah in East Moline, how cold is too cold for my dog to be outside, even for a quick walk? My suggestion for this is if it's too cold for you, even with the basics on, the winter coat, the scarf, the hat, then it's too cold for them. For example, you know, Cooper's got that thick coat of fur on him, we likely will not be doing the walk tomorrow, even though he's got a winter coat that I can put on him. I think it's just too cold even for their poor little nose to be outside with those wind chills tomorrow. So tomorrow would be a day that, yeah, we're going to need some indoor activities. I've already got a couple of things lined up for Mr. Cooper. We'll do some running around in my open basement there, and he can get some exercise that way. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on your pets as we go through tomorrow. Limit their time outside. From Henry and Davenport, should I let my car warm up in the morning, or is that a myth? We've actually done the verify on that. In fact, I think there's 2 or 3 different verifies that are sitting out on the website at WQAD.com. From most mechanics, including ones I've interacted with, it's usually not a problem. Again, making sure you have more than half a tank of gas, making sure you're keeping up on your car maintenance. You're not, letting long distances between oil changes get in there. Your tires are properly inflated, all that good stuff. You can kind of take that with your own discretion because it is your vehicle. But from everything that we've heard, it really doesn't do much damage. And plus, think of new cars now. They have all this technology in them, all these computers that are doing all these calculations to make sure they run efficiently. So I think by now that's usually a problem of the past and probably reserved for much older car models would be my guess. From, let's see, this is from Carrie and Moline. If I have to work outside, what's the safest way to do it this weekend? It's all about covering up. Making sure you've got hat, gloves on. You have a face covering as well. You got a nice scarf you can put on. Also covering up your head. The most amount of heat loss comes from top of your noggin here, so make sure that's all nice and covered up. That'll prevent you from getting sick as you're out in the cold. And remember, Morgan and I did a verified, can you catch a cold? Just by being outside in the cold. Our parents always said, put a coat on. You're going to get a cold if you're outside in this kind of weather. So check that out, too. You can find it at WQAD.com. That was a really cool thing to do. Like Carrie said, if you have to be outside, you're dressing in layers. That's the key. You want to be able to be comfortable even while you're standing still. Not counting any activity you might be doing, whether it's moving things around, whether it's going outside for a quick brisk walk. The key is you want to remain comfortable even when you're standing still and you're not moving. From Tyler in Galesburg, what is the coldest wind chill ever recorded in this area? That one is kind of hard to answer. We don't keep wind chill records per se. The National Weather Service doesn't, at least. However, if you go back several years ago, and you know what year I'm talking about, when we had actual temperatures reach to about 31, 35 degrees below zero, we broke state record low temperatures. Yeah, you know what year I'm talking about. We did have wind chills that were 50 to 55 degrees below zero. And I think that by far, at least in the short term, in the last several years, takes the cake for the lowest wind chill readings that we have seen here on record in the Quad Cities. Again, that window is very narrow. National Weather Service really didn't begin keeping wind chill records until recently, if at all. So it's kind of hard to say, but I think it's safe to say that yes, it was that event that brought that record cold that also likely brought us the record cold wind chills as well. This is from next, Jason Bettendorf. What's worse, extreme wind chill or super low actual temperatures? I would say it's the wind chill because when you think about the wind chill factor itself, you could have a temperature of 10 degrees below zero. But if you had a wind chill of 40 to 50 degrees below zero, that's even more dangerous. It's the wind chill that is dangerous for us. And the reason for that is, and I've explained this many, many times, is that your body naturally produces a dome of heat around itself as a defense mechanism to kind of ward off cold temperatures. But when you've got wind that essentially rips that dome of warm air away from you, your defense mechanism is gone. You are essentially helpless when it comes to the wind chill factor. I actually have a nice graphic that I like to use to explain this. But, trying to pull it up on the fly is usually a little bit difficult. In fact, there it is. Wow, it's actually going to work for me. Okay, so here's the example that I have for the wind chill. So this is on a good day when you've got very light winds. You've got that nice warm dome air surrounding you. You've got a wind speed of 3 miles an hour in this scenario. You've got a temperature of 32 and a wind chill of 28. Not bad. But what happens when you pull the wind in here and you increase it even more? Same temperature, different wind speed. the strong wind rips away that dome of warm air away from you. And that 32 feels more like 20. And so your body's defense mechanism is completely gone. That means your skin is prone to frostbite. You start drying out the water in your skin. You start freezing the water in your skin. You have to remember, going back to biology, how much of a percentage of the body is made up of water. It's a huge percent, including the outer layer of your skin. So that all freezes because of all that water content. So that's why frostbite is always a significant concern with this type of weather. Great question. Hey, Marcus in Knoxville, who do you think that is? Hi, buddy. I bet you I know who that is. Yeah. By the way, Devin and Ava say hello. Brandy, our director, says hello too as well. Marcus is asking, my question is, what factors are in play when it comes to snow sticking on the ground or not? What a good question. Dang. I know, I've taught him well, right? So that is a fantastic question. The biggest thing you want to look for is what is the temperature of the ground. So lately we've been very cold around here. The ground is likely sitting at or just below freezing. That enhances the sticking factor, if you will, of the snow. It doesn't melt immediately on contact. That's why this morning, the first place that snow piled up instead of the road, it was the grassy surfaces, because that ground is already cold enough now to start to support some of that snow accumulation. Now, if it were to, let's say we go in our time machine and we go back to mid-November and we get our first snow, you remember how warm the beginning of November was. We had 60s, we had 70s. The ground back then would have been too warm. It could have snowed, the snow would have melted, ground's too warm to support it. But now we've been cold and cold enough that the ground will support accumulating snow. Also, too, wet, heavy snow will tend to stick a little bit more to the grassy surfaces than the dry snow will, too. That's more of a road sticking snow. But great question. Love that question. Linnell's asking, will the aches and pains be worse during this next cold snap? Yes, it will. We're going to be seeing a lot of ups and downs here in the days ahead. If you're curious what she's talking about, the aches and pains tracker, if you watch us for GMQC at 11, we do this during the health segment. And what I do is I show you the pressure change here throughout the next several days. And as our graph is filling in the data, when you have a big rise and a big fall, where this line gets really curvy, that's where you're going to start to see some aches and pains. And look at that. As we get into the upcoming weekend, we're starting to see that go down. Then we go back up early next week, and then we fall back down. Different pressure systems, different temperature patterns impact this. And the graph is most wild this time of year. In the summer, this line is really, really flat. But this time of year, we have all these temperature changes. We have all these storm systems pushing through. That creates the aches and pains. So hopefully you've got your favorite regimen close by ready to go to tackle some of the aches and pains that are going to be coming our way. We've also got a question from Pam in Muscatine. Does wind chill affect inanimate objects like cars, buildings, or just people? The wind chill only affects living and breathing things because the wind chill is an experience. Cars can't experience this. Nothing else can experience this. Trees, none of that. Flags on flags poles, they don't experience it. Buildings don't experience it. Animals experience it though, because animals like us, they're living, they're breathing. They have feeling in their skin and in their other organs and extremities. So wind chill only impacts humans. I always give the example. You could take a glass of water and put it on your vehicle, and then take your vehicle up to 70 miles an hour per se, and the temperature is 34 degrees. While if you had a wind of 70 miles an hour in that same temperature, the wind chill would be like 10 to 20 below zero. That doesn't mean it's going to freeze the cup of water on your car that's speeding down the roadway at 70 miles an hour with a temperature that's above freezing. It doesn't change the temperature. It only changes the perception of the temperature. So that's a really great question, and one that we answer, it seems like, almost every winter. But yeah, it makes you wonder, does the car experience a wind chill? And the answer is no. That's why you don't have anything freezing with your car, no matter how fast you're going in those kind of temperatures. Linnell, you were smart washing your windows the other day. I still got to get that done with my car. My car windows are dirty because of a certain canine that lives with me. So looks like I'm too late to do that. I'm going to have to wait till the weekend till it warms up again. But it looks like we've got all of our questions in for this morning. You guys have been a great group, and I want to thank you for joining me. We're going to be right back here I don't think next week. Let me pull my calendar up here because I believe next week is Christmas. No, the week after next week is Christmas. I'm going to be on leave next week for the Wednesday edition. That's the 18th. So either Morgan or Peter will be stepping in for me then. And then, of course, the week after that is Christmas. So I will not see you guys for Ask Andrew Live until January 8th because New Year's Day, there is also no GMQC. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break, but no worries. Weather anchor Peter Warner and meteorologist Morgan Strackbine will likely be back with you this time next week, 9 o'clock on a Wednesday here on the WQ80 8+ app for Ask Andrew Live. Be careful out there as that snow continues to fall. I'll see you later this morning coming up on GMQC at 11. Have a great day.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 8+ app everywhere you stream.